everyone, it's Lynn Dion from Pink Whisper Designs. Today we're going to create a really fun diorama card, and we're going to be creating a little scene that we'll call Christmas on the Farm. So let's go ahead and take a look at the stamps that we're going to be using today. So this is the set. This is from the Art Impressions Ride Interactive Series, and there were several in this series, and we're going to be using this one that's called the Christmas Truck Set. And you can see you get some packages and lights, a tree, a snowman, a little wreath, a candy cane, and that cute little truck. And it does come with the coordinating dies. The other set we're using is the Harvest Set. I'm going to be grabbing those little bales of hay, both of those, the large and the small one. And then to ink these up, I'm using the Versafine Onyx black ink, and I've got some Strathmore Bristol Smooth 100-pound cardstock in my mini MISTI stamp positioner. So let's go ahead and press those out, and now we can do some coloring. But I did want to let you know that off camera I'm going to color in some additional images. So I've got some extra trees, some extra lights, and an extra couple of those little hay bales. To do my coloring, I'm going to start off with light green and deep green, and we're going to color the trees in all the same exact way. So those other three that I stamped off camera, we'll be coloring those in the same way. And what I'm using to do my blending is the Zig blender pen, and these are the Zig Clean Color Real Brush pens. So you can see I'm adding a little shadow right underneath the overlap on these trees, but later on we're going to be adding the look of snow with some bleed-proof white ink. So you don't have to be too fussy with your coloring. We're going to add that snow around the edges of the branches of the tree. I've got beige and mid-brown, and all the colors I'm using will be listed in that upper left-hand corner as we're going along. I did the base of the tree, or the trunk of the tree, and then I'm going to do this little post. We're going to be stamping a cute little sentiment on this post, and we're also going to be adding some snow to this as well. I'm also going to use the beige and mid-brown on the truck, and we're going to just add that lightest color first and then add a little bit of that darker shadow along the bottom, and then kind of pull that up towards the top. And again, this little truck does come with those additional fenders with the snow on them as well. So you could stamp those separately and color those in, and then pop them up on your card to give your truck a little bit more dimension. But for today's card, we are going to be placing this truck inside our diorama. So I don't want it to be too bulky. I don't want to have too much dimension inside, so that this will fold up nice and flat when we're done. So I've got the wine red, and I'm coloring in the body of the truck. But after I colored this in, and you will see that it's a little bit on the bright side, I really wanted to go a little bit darker with the truck. So what I'm going to do is add a little shadowing with my gray, my light gray pen. But I'll finish coloring this in so you can see how I did this. And then we're also going to do those little fenders as well. Now if you do get any ink where you don't want it, you can always pick it up with your blender pen. Just grab that color off your image and scribble it onto your scrap paper, and you can clean that up. It is a little difficult when you're using red. It seems to get a little bit on the white areas. It bleeds a little bit. I don't seem to have that problem with the other colors, but with the red, I sometimes do. So again, it's easy to clean that up if you need to. So let's finish up the top of the truck. And then here's where I've got that light gray. And you can even go darker if you really wanted to darken this up. You could go to like a mid-gray. But with that dark gray, you can see I can give this a little bit more of an aged look and just give it a little bit more shadowing. You do want to clean that off as you're going along, because you will pick up some of that red. Just scribble it on your scrap paper to clean it up. And with warm gray number 4, I'm going to do the little bumpers on the truck, and then I'm also going to do the rims on the truck. We're going to keep the tires white. And to do that, I'm just going to add a little shadow of the light gray, just to give it a little bit more dimension. Later on, we'll be using our gel pen, our white gel pen, to add some highlights here and there. And then I'm adding a little touch of that gray to the bottom of the snow. For the snow, we're also going to be using that white ink, and we'll really brighten it up and give it some texture. I used that ice blue on the headlight of the truck, and then I'm going back to that wine red for the candy cane and a little bit of that light gray. For the hay bales, I've got mustard, and I'm just going to use that one color. I'll just add that kind of towards the left-hand side of the hay bale and towards the center, and then just blend that out. And with yellow, we'll do the little star. You could certainly add some sparkle to this or use your gold gel pen for that. And then with Persian blue, I'm going to do the little bow on this package. And we'll keep the 2 packages white. So for that other bow, I use that same wine red. I'm back to the light green and that dark green to do this bow. And I'll be using a white gel pen to add a few little dots to that bow as well, some little polka dots. Here's that light gray, and I'm just adding it to each of these packages. And then for the wreath, we'll do the red, the wine red again on the berries, and then the 2 greens for the greenery. And I'll just color in a couple of these just so you can see what I did, and then I did the rest off camera. Then I grabbed a little collection of colors to do the little bulbs. And then I used the gray for the little stem of the bulb. So it's really simple coloring, and you can see that up close. And those are the extra ones up top there that I colored in off camera. For the hay bales, there are no dies with this set, so I'm using my detail scissors, and you can see how easily I can trim those up. I left a little tiny bit of a white border. I've got my steel die cutters. I'm going to go ahead and cut apart these dies, and then we'll line those up and tape those down with a little bit of post-it tape. We'll be running these through the Spellbinders Scout machine, and look how cute this is. It even cuts out the little window and all those little areas on the back of the truck, so it's very detailed. I've got everything die cut and cut out. So let's go to that bleed-proof white ink that I talked about before. That's the Doc PH Martins. I've got a little angled brush, and I'm going to just add that paint kind of thick. I didn't thin it out with water or anything, and I just sort of dabbed it on, kind of like in a dabbing motion, and I wanted it to be fairly thick so it would look a little bit more like snow. So it has a little bit of texture to it. And then we're going to add it to the top of that little post, and also, again, as I mentioned before, to our trees. And I'll do that for all the trees. I'll just do this one so you can see it. And then I can let a lot of this set and dry while we're working on the rest of our project. For the packages, again, I'm going back to that white gel pen, and we'll fill in some highlights. And I also added those little polka dots to the bow. To create our diorama, we're using the Lawn Fawn Tada diorama set, and these are all the dies that come in the set, and I'll talk about each of those. This little set is an add-on set, and these are the hillside border inserts. So to create that snowy look, rather than using that straight little border up top on the right, we're going to use the snowy borders. This set also includes a couple of additional items. You've got some clouds, a moon, and a couple little banner dies. For paper today, I'm using the Christmas Season 2 paper pack from Art Impressions, and I'm going to select a few papers from this. I'm going to use that wood grain paper to create the frame for the front of our diorama. So those two dies from that Tada diorama set will create that frame. And then this one, we need to die cut 2 of these. That will create the little mechanism that folds in and out for our diorama. And then for this inside portion, I'm going to use that larger die that we use for the frame and die cut that nice green, dark green background. And then here we've got those little hillside borders, and that other long rectangular piece, we need 2 of those. That will create the little slider piece for our diorama. So let's go ahead and die cut everything. So here I'm using the largest one to die cut that dark green paper. That would be for the inside of our diorama. And then I've got the 2 dies together to create the frame opening for the front of our diorama. You can see that'll sit just like that. And then I need 2 of these little snowy backgrounds to create the mechanism. So let's go back, and that's those 2 there. And there's the frame, and there's the background. So that's everything die cut. We've got 2 of those long rectangular pieces and the 2 snowy borders. So let's start off with the little mechanism pieces. There's 2 score lines on these, and I'm going to fold on each of those lines. So I'm just folding away from myself. We'll do the same thing with this one. So the portion that will be showing will be the snow. So you do want to keep that in mind when you're die cutting your pieces, which color you want to be on the outside of your card. Now with these little dies, these are like little, Fawn calls them little boot dies. So you want the toe of the boot to face the longer section, not that shorter section. So here again, I want the toe of the boot to face that longer section. So I'm going to tape those down right at the very bottom. So it's basically centered in between the 2 score lines at the bottom, and the little boot faces the longer section of that piece. So let's run both of these through the Scout machine, and that will cut the little notches that we need to place our snowy borders in our diorama. What you want to do is on the smaller section, we're going to place some tape or glue. The tape is nice because it's very secure, so that's going to hold this down nicely. I just need 2 strips of tape. I'll just cut away any excess. You do want to go end to end and make sure this is nice and secure. And then I'm just going to remove the backing from both of those. So let's take not the frame one, but this background, the dark green background, and we're going to fold this in half. And we're going to place the tape right against that panel. We want to line this up in the along the left-hand side, and then this one we want to line up against the right-hand side. But they should meet perfectly in the center. And there you can see we have our little mechanism for the diorama. For the snowy borders, I'm going to take the Ice Spruce. This is the Tim Holtz Distress Oxide ink, and just a small blending brush, and add just a little shadow across the top of the snow, just to give it a little bit more of an icy look and a little more dimension. So there's 2 score lines on the top and the bottom of each of these. So I'm going to fold those away from me on both of these little borders. And then what you can do, now that they're folded back, they will fit right into those slots. I'm going to put both sides in, and then you want to open up those little tabs. And then that will create that little border in the background. Now you can use just one of your borders or both, whatever you prefer. For this one I'll do it where I'll slide that in and then open up that tab. And then we'll do the other side the same way. So either way is fine. And that secures those right in place. And look how cute, this is already starting to come together. Now we've got these 2 rectangular pieces that also have a score line on each side. We're going to fold those away from ourselves. And for these, we're going to put glue on on each end, again on those little tabs on either end. So I'm going to go back to that double-sided adhesive and make sure these are nice and secure as well. So I'm just placing some tape from the score line to the end of the rectangle. I'll just place a couple little pieces on there just to make sure that I have enough. We can remove the backing from both of these. I'm just using my little Cricut weeding tool to remove the backing. And once we have that done, what we're going to do is fold these back. So the way we folded them before, but now they'll have adhesive on them. So now we can line these up on our frame. So let's grab that wood grain frame and we're going to flip it over. We want to put this on the back side of that frame. And we want to line up the notch with the notch on the frame. So this is really easy to line up. You just want to line up the notch and then tape this in place. And you can see that'll create like the little pocket, the little opening that we need to place the front of our card through. And I'll show you what I mean in a second. So let's take that notch and line it up and tape that down. And now we can take those two little flaps and feed those right through those openings on either side. And now you can see that we can pull this diorama in and out, open and closed. Now the little truck is too long. It's too big for our diorama. So we're going to cut it down. And the way I'm going to do that is I took that snowy border and I'm just going to mark the edge where I need to cut this so that it will fit nicely inside. So I'm just going to mark that with a pencil and then line it up in my mini Tim Holtz paper trimmer and trim away that excess. Now we can glue this in, and I'm going to glue it on the very back section of our diorama. And I want it to look like it's kind of behind that snow a little bit. So I'm just going to slide that in place and glue that down. And now you can see it fits in there perfectly. And I did notice that I needed to move that over just a little bit to the right hand side. There was a little gap there. So I'm using my bone folder to press that out. And now we can start adding all of these fun little pieces. So I'm going to add the wreath to the door on the truck, and you'll get a better look at that here in a second. And then I'm going to add the bow to the wreath. And there you can see that. Again, I'm not adding dimension in here. I don't want it to get too bulky inside. You could pop up things on your frame, this little wood grain frame, if you want to. I didn't, but you certainly could. And then I took one of those hay bales and I placed it down. And you only want to put glue on the right hand side of the tree and the hay bale because you don't want it to, glue your little interactive pieces down. So you want to make sure you're only gluing to that frame and that you don't have any glue on that overlap. And then let's add some little sparkly lights to the tree. Just going to add 2 sets of those. Now for these, you could add a little more dimension to these with some clear glaze or even some of your Wink of Stella glitter pen if you wanted to. And then let's add the little package, and I'll just add glue to the bottom of this. Again, being careful not to put glue above that frame. Now, at this point, I decided to take the frame off so I could finish gluing things on. It just kept popping up on me. So I took that off just temporarily so we can glue down another little bale of hay, one of the smaller ones. And then we'll put that little red and white package up on top of this. And let's add a little string of lights here as well. Going back to the base of the card, and I'm going to take two of those trees and I'm going to put them on either side inside this little diorama, so that when you look inside you'll see a couple of trees in there. It'll just kind of finish things off. You certainly don't have to put anything on the sides if you don't want to. I just thought it really gave it more of a snowy look and more of a winter look. So I'm putting an acrylic block on there. I'll let that dry. Now for this little signpost, I'm going to the Christmas sentiment set, and I just want that little word joy. It says joy to the world. You get lots of cute little sentiments in this. I'm going to cut the stamp apart. I just want the word joy. You don't have to cut this apart. You can always put it back together, but if you don't want to cut it apart, you can just use a little bit of Post-it tape and mask off the other words and just stamp that word. But I'm not worried about it. I know that I can put it back together if I want to. I'm just going to quickly stamp that right onto this little signpost, and it just looks so cute. So once that was done, let's go ahead and again, I'm going to just take out that snowy border just because it's easier for me to work on. I'll pop it right back in once I'm done gluing these in place. You certainly don't have to do this. You can just glue them in, but I just found it easier to take this out once I decided where I wanted everything to go. And I am placing this right in the center. I just don't want anything to interfere with the opening and closing of this diorama. So I just decided that I would place this right in the center of that snowy border that's in the front of the card. And then again, when you glue this down, you want to just put glue at the very bottom. You don't want to have any glue up above that snowy border. Now I can go ahead and pop this right back into place. And look how cute this is. So let's go ahead and put this back together. Now I've got the rectangle A2 double stitch dies from Art Impressions, and then I've got another piece of paper from that paper pad. I'm going to use that little gingham plaid, and I went ahead and die cut it with that second largest die from the rectangle A2 double stitch dies, and I also cut another one from some Kraft cardstock. I'm going to tape these two together just to create a little base for our card, and that will also give me a place on the back of the card to stamp another sentiment or sign this or write a little message. I'm putting some tape on the back of the whole diorama, and then I'll tape these two together, and that'll give us a nice little plaid border as well. Now remember that diorama set had these cute little clouds in it, and they die cut not only the cloud but also the little frames. So I went ahead and I attached several of those clouds to this diorama, some on the inside and several on the outside, and you can see those there. I have these two little pieces left over, which I may put on the back of the card once I decide if I'm going to stamp a sentiment there. I may add those few little pieces. And do keep in mind that all of the products I'm using today are listed and linked down below, as well as on my blog. So I hope you enjoyed our little Christmas on the Farm diorama card today. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so that you don't miss a single video. As always, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you all have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.